Welcome everybody to our new channel, Life is for Living, with David Riddell, and I am your host and interviewer, Kylie Jane Buckley. Thank you for joining us today. So David, it's an absolute pleasure and honor to be able to do these series of interviews with you and to be able to educate people in how they can make their lives better and to overcome obstacles that they have in their lives and to bring truth into areas which is needed. So thank you for joining us today. For those that don't know David has been a counsellor and a truth coach, and he has his own, we'll just say, philosophy.
That would be right.
3 years, yeah,
Yeah.
3 years of coaching others and teaching others and counseling others in psychotherapy with truth and correcting our mind, correcting the way that we think and we see ourselves and we see the world. For me personally, it has absolutely changed my life by going and doing a course with David, a 2-week course at Living Wisdom, which is David's company, and learning areas of my life that I had been caught in and not realizing why I was making a repetitive problem for myself continuously and not knowing why I was still doing that after all these years. However, with
I
one
believe
answer,
that's called
David,
shooting yourself in the foot. Is that the vernacular?
yeah,
Shooting yourself in the foot?
yep, totally, over and over again, and it hurt each time. So I moved my foot, but I still did it.
It's a common problem.
Yeah, well, but learning why and learning how you think has completely changed my life and made me realize why I was doing that. And we cannot keep David in the cupboard. We must bring him out to the public. And this is why I propositioned David, please, can we do a channel and can I bring you to the public so that everyone else can get the same information and be set free in their own lives, in their families' lives, and friends that are caught in just, circles of repetitive thinking that just doesn't serve them well. So welcome, David.
Thank you. Yes, I've been an observer of people and life, success and failure for around 70 years now, and actively learning the whole time. I think it's probably time now that I shared this with the world. These are more than just keys for success. This is an entire attitude of body, soul, and spirit that I want to share with you, Kylie. And thank you for your invitation.
Yes, well, thank you for accepting it. So what we're going to be doing is a series of interviews where we will be going through the material that David presented to myself and to others in our class. We'll be dealing with the mind, but dealing with all sorts of things from relationships to fears to phobias to just it, you name it, everything,
Life.
life. Yeah, and we're always learning. We're always learning, and this is what it's about. It's about getting the tools, guys, so that we can all be successful in life and be better than what we have been, and to enjoy our life fully. Really, we're meant to be enjoying it. It's meant to
I
be.
think it would be a fair comment to say that most people feel somewhat surprised at just how difficult life has turned out to be. And they have evolved and developed all kinds of coping skills and strategies to deal with this difficult thing called life. The problem is some of those coping strategies work, most of them don't. And childhood coping skills are not a good foundation to build the rest of your life on, are they? And so, what Living Wisdom does is it encourages and assists people to review those defense mechanisms and those survival kits, only to discover that actually it's often the strategies we devise to cope which become our worst enemies. And that can get even more confusing. So, if I can help over your channel, I'm very happy to do so.
Thank you, David. And that's what does happen, isn't it? And I did that. I was living out of an old mindset, and
Mm.
mindset that served me back then, but not now, not all these years later. But we're creatures of habit. And if we do what we've always done, we're going to get what we've always got. But when that worked back as a child, that's okay because it was needed then. But it's not needed now. We need to shake off a lot of these mindsets. And some of them we don't even know. In fact, most of them, we probably, is that correct in saying? We don't even know that we're doing them or why we're doing them.
I've coined a phrase you might like. I don't know if you've heard it before from me, Kylie, but in childhood, we develop bodyguards. In adult life, those bodyguards often devolve into prison guards without our even realizing it. So the bodyguard must not become a prison guard. Otherwise, it's desperately out of date, and we're going to need some help to be rid of it.
Yes, yes. And this is where you come in. Thank you, David. So going forward, we are going to be starting off with key fundamentals, I suppose. That's probably a good way to put it, on how we can get there. So one of them is new awakenings to reality that we need to develop and consciously, deliberately, with intent, change our thinking of our mind. Like the Bible says, to renew your mind, right? Daily. But how do we do that? How do we actually change our mind?
And new awakenings to reality is a great phrase, and that can be spoken in common terms, or it can be spoken in profound terms. But when you're awoken to reality, the first thing you realize is that success comes with adjusting to reality, not going into denial about reality. Whole corporations have died through not living in reality, and families have struggled because they don't live in reality, and individuals fail because they don't wake up and smell the coffee, as they say. But to live in reality demands certain disciplines. You know, the trite saying is true. The only place where success comes before work is in the dictionary. And whether you're learning to play a musical instrument or get along well with people, whether you're learning your profession or your trade, your success depends entirely on your willingness to wake up to reality, to grapple with reality, and to conform to the principles of success, without which you're going to be deluding yourself, and you'll probably be the last to realize it, because what is obvious to other people is often not obvious to the person who's in need of the coaching and the help.
And that is so true. That is very, very true. And it's because people get stuck, don't they?
They do get stuck. And the main reason they get stuck is because they swallow a lie. Like the little old lady that swallowed the fly, they swallow a lie in childhood, and that lie grows, develops, and morphs into a king lie that basically controls their paradigm and their narrative. And once that lie is resident, the narrative is like the compass that has distortion built within. It cannot see straight. It cannot determine true north. It cannot think straight. And virtually you become a person, as M. Scott Peck described you, as the person of the lie. In his book, The People of the Lie, he describes how one overarching agenda can steer a soul into destruction. And the result of that is they go through life avoiding truth, not understanding that they are being guided by this interference, psychological interference in their thinking, that then translates into their moods and their emotions, and then translates into their behavior. So it does take a little bit of time and a little bit of thought to figure out, where am I going wrong? Why am I going wrong? And what needs done about it?
Yes. But you did that within 1 hour.
Well,
When I came
I've
to
had a bit of
see
experience now, Kylie. I think at last tote, I've clocked up about 60,000 hours of clinical experience in counseling and psychotherapy. So you could say that I nearly know exactly what I'm doing.
yes, I think so. Well, the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? And as the result
Yeah.
of people's lives
Well,
changing.
we've graduated a couple of thousand people from my short 10-day course, and every one of them report at least some level of breakthrough in their lives. I've taken these schools to various countries in the world, but mostly I'm a pretty domesticated Kiwi. And so that's where I've been working down here in New Zealand, bottom of the Pacific, for about 30 years now.
Well, I think it's time that we break that open and this can get spread all throughout the world.
The ball's in your court, my dear.
I love it. Well, shall we do one more?
Go for it.
Yeah, let's do one more. Preparation for this life as well as the next. This is an interesting one because in the world, there's lots of different cultures, there's lots of different religions, but most of them, if not all, believe in eternal life. It's not just about this life, although that varies depending on the culture. But I suppose talking about this, it's about our character, isn't it? It's about all cultures and religions believe that, you know, it's about making this life the best that it can be. You know, let's live our best life. You know, all of those things that the world believe, or reincarnation. I mean, we don't believe that. We believe that God exists and He made us for a purpose and a reason, and He has ways and systems. But this particular question, preparation for this life, to prepare for this life, this everything that we're facing, having a family, being in a family, work, everything else. Talk to me about that, David.
Well, there has to be a decision made at some time as to whether we are merely temporal creatures, as a grasshopper or a sheep or a cat or a dog. But what if we're eternal? And what if an eternal God only creates eternal souls? I think one of the reasons that I put so much emphasis on the holiness of life is because decision by decision, we are in fact creating ourselves. We are in fact creating our soul and therefore our destiny. We must inherit ourselves. Whatever argument you want to make about heaven and hell, ultimately we must be determined by our character and by our the shape of our soul. And so you could say that our character is becoming our destiny. And that's why it's very important that we make friends with our own mind. And this is the first challenge in life, to make friends with your own mind, because when your mind is your friend, then the world is a friendlier place, family is a friendlier place. But what's more important, my destiny is a much friendlier place as well. I work with people who are already in torment and they're not yet 10 or 15 years of age. And what their future is going to be like can fill me with dismay or despair if I dwell on it. And the reason for that is because we have sovereignty, which means we have freedom to do the right thing or the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. And in this life, the wrong thing can seem far more attractive than the right thing, but the fruit of the wrong thing is always bitter. Mm-hmm. And as we see people rise up like a shooting star and then crash and burn in a mess of stress, fear, anxiety, paranoia, isolation, rejection, and abandonment, you name it. But we're playing for high stakes in life. And that's why the mission that I've accepted to rebuild mental health in the broken is such an important calling. It's a vocation, it's a destiny for me. I have, I believe, been called to restore the brokenhearted and the broken-minded. And that's what I do most days of the week, for most hours in the day, and have been doing that for most of my career. The way of the mind is not strange to me, and the way of personality formation is well known to me. And my concern is that if my character is becoming my destiny, then my character needs to be healed now, not tomorrow or next week. It needs healing today. And so I encourage all of your listeners to take more seriously the thoughts of the mind and to learn to take captive the thoughts that are actually scaring them, setting them up for failure, or filling them with depression and despair. Let me reassure everybody, depression is not God's will for you. Terror and fear is not God's will for you. And even stress in life has to be taken seriously in case you start to become paranoid about all sorts of things that nobody else is afraid of. We're gambling here with high stakes. And the reason for that is because what do you do when your own mind turns against you? Where are you going to hide from it? Where are you going to run to? Drugs won't do it. Vaping won't do it. Erotic thrills won't do it. Workaholic and making money won't do it. Where are you going to hide if your own mind turns against you?
Yes, powerful. We need to heal the mind, and we need to heal the mind of our youth. You know,
and most people, it would be fair to say, know that there's something not quite right, but they haven't got a clue where to go or how to begin the process of healing their own thinking. And I liken it to somebody lying in a messed up, crumpled up, wrecked bed, and the bed sheets, the Manchester is in a real mess, and they try and make the bed, but they don't want to get out of it to do it. And that means they won't step back from their mind and take a good hard look at the way their thinking goes. But until you actually do that, until you step back and examine your self-talk and examine your narrative, you actually are completely unable to do anything about it. And the only reason that we can do that, as opposed to an animal who lacks that self-awareness, is that we are not purely mind. We're actually essentially a spirit. And if I can teach the spirit to step back from the mind and assess what's going on there. And so one of the texts for my 2-week short course is the William Backus book, Bacchus as in the god of wine. The Bacchus book, Telling Yourself the Truth, is a very good starter for this whole process. And I recommend that everybody who wants to work on their own emotions and mental thought life needs to get that book and study it, and then come and enroll in my course, and I'll coach you into a life you never knew existed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that is a good book. It's very, very important to read it. Yeah, because it just opens your mind up to think of yourself and things, and to self-examine in a way that you never have done before.
Well, your behavior is only as good as your moods and emotions, but your moods and emotions, Kylie, are only as good as your narrative. And so we help people to listen in on their narrative and to change their narrative and to take the correction necessary in order that their narrative begins to work for them and not against them. Now, in your introduction, you mentioned a key word in passing, and I'd like to pick up on it right now. The word is correction. In Living Wisdom, we correct people gently, kindly, graciously, just as a music teacher might teach a child the score to getting the music right. We correct people so that they get the music right. And we don't hold back from correcting them. And that's why I've parted company with modern secular methodologies that refuse to allow correction In fact, they only really permit you various ways of paraphrasing and reflecting, which is the counseling you get when you don't actually get any counseling. It's modernistic, it's liberal, and it really witnesses to the death of truth in the Western world. And Living Wisdom has no part of that. We believe there is a need to recognize both absolute and relative truth in its proper place.
Yes, yes. Well, that's where you get the victory. The truth will set you free.
That's right.
And talking and talking and talking doesn't change anything.
That's
It might
right.
validate what you're thinking, but you're still you're still at the beginning of the race. You haven't got off the marker yet. You're still
Like
talking.
the old saying goes, a trouble shared is a trouble now two people are struggling with.
Yeah, true. Very good. Well,
So,
thank you, David. I think we'll finish it there for our first one.
excellent. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you, David. And we look forward to our next session of Life is Worth Living with David Riddell. Bless you,
Amen.
everybody. Bye.